with session 5 of the Macronauts, Explorers of the Macroverse. So welcome, GM. It is currently 4 o'clock Pacific time in Los Angeles, California on Wednesday, March 8th. And I'll start with a little update. We will likely have a few people joining live over the course of this session. And if you would like to be one of those people, everyone is welcome. And just jump into the Macroverse Discord at discord.gg/Macroverse. And you'll find right in the announcements channel the link to join this conversation live. We'd love to have you. In the meantime, a couple of updates on the Macronauts front. Also in our Discord, after last week's session, where we talked a lot about audio storytelling, and that being the first expression of this process, and the material that we're making is going to be an audio series. We also posted a bunch of audio series recommendations. A bunch of series that you could dive into if you're not currently listening to narrative audio series. So a bunch of recommendations there. And then also several that myself and my creative partner and co-founder in Macroverse, Adam Martin, that we either wrote and or directed and produced together. So there's several of ours in there as well. And it's a little bit of a, I'm saying this publicly live, but all of those series that we're sharing just with the Discord community are not the easiest to necessarily get to. Let's put it that way. So it's a little bit of a treat for those of you that are in the community and anyone that jumps into the community now. Of course, you can also follow along with everything that we're doing on the Macroverse side on the Macroverse Twitter. That's the place we're most active on a kind of day-to-day basis. So that is the Macronauts Twitter, Macronauts HQ, or the mothership Twitter for Macroverse is Macroverse HQ. Some interesting, fun things that have happened in the worlds that we're building over the course of the last week, which I'll get to at the end. But the big news, as far as Macronauts are concerned, I have started doing some preliminary sketches as far as the artwork for the characters. Not anything I'm quite ready to share yet, but it won't be long. And heyo, Lady Valor as well. She's saying hello in the chat. If you're watching on YouTube or any of the other places, I think other than Twitter, I do see the comments that come in. So heyo to you. Yeah, so some preliminary sketches. I have a pretty clear sense of what I am thinking now as far as the look and the feel and the style of the characters for the character collection. And before that gets finalized, of course, we'll be sharing some of that and asking for any feedback or commentary. There's some other interesting things in, as I said, kind of the broader Macroverse ecosystem, which I'm going to talk about at the end of this stream. So stay tuned for that. But the other news is that a little later than intended, meaning way later than intended, I got up a channel in the Macroverse Discord as well for story and character submissions. And that's what we're going to talk to tonight and talk about tonight. Scott, hello to you. / Tiny Universe. Sad face. I don't know if emojis are meant to be typed out in descriptive text, but we'll take it. So anyhow, you'll note if you look in the Discord that there is a new channel in the Macronauts section. And you know what? I just realized, for those of you that are watching, I just said there's a link to join the stream live, and I realized I never posted it. I'm looking at the Discord right now. It's literally a message that was waiting for me to hit return on it. So I am going to do that right now. This is the dramatic moment of hitting return, so that will be a link for people to actually join this conversation in 3, 2, 1. Bam. All right, send now. Now, anyone that wants to join live, please do so. Apologies for that. That sums up my day, actually, in a very funny way to me, but it's all good. So yes, talking about characters tonight, and we've got a couple of submissions already in the character and story channel in the Discord. So we'll be talking about that a little bit, especially for the couple that have been posted so far. But a quick refresher before we dive into that, as people may make their way in to the live session to discuss, as Tiny is just coming in right now. Just a quick refresher on a couple things. So one, I'm just realizing, for anyone that's coming to this stream without the benefit of the previous 4 sessions, here is a super quick recap. Number one, there's a link to a Gitbook document, which is in the description of the video, which gets pretty detailed as far as what the project is, what the objectives are, how it all works. But for the viewer currently watching, the Macronauts project is a new franchise, a new world that exists across all of the Macroverse. So, Macroverse is a company. It's also our version of the metaverse or the multiverse, where the distinction is that there are a lot of different worlds where stories take place. So we've got post-apocalyptic, zombies running around in Dead Town. We've got neo-noir, crime in the dark web, in digital pools. We've got all ages adventure happening in the world of Friends and Fiends by phenomenal graphic novelist Jason Brubaker. We've got a series that, art and creativity is the source of power, kind of magic and power, which is coming out later this year, called Aerosol, a spinoff from Deadheads, called Sal Bones, which is from one of our collaborators that we'll be doing some fun things with over the course of this year. Anyway, lots and lots of fun story worlds that cover kind of every genre and style of things that people may want to play in, and a bunch of content that we've been developing over the past year and a half coming for you in each of the story worlds. So Macronauts is the way that we tie all that together. These are the explorers of the Macroverse, and as such, these characters will be able to jump with some very specific technology through portals into these various worlds. And so there's a story component to that, there's a character collection component to that, and there is a platform component to that, which is how you will both literally and metaphorically explore these different worlds as we continue to build over the course of this year. So some of that will make sense if you know a little bit about what we're doing. Some of that may be confusing, but stay tuned. And if you want to know more, again, link to the Gitbook in the description of this video, if you're on YouTube especially, or at Macronauts HQ on Twitter. Lots more in the Discord. And now, as we dive into talking about this evening's specific things that we want to talk about around character, let me bring in Matt and Tiny, who have been patiently waiting off screen. How are you guys tonight? Hello, hello, hello.
Excellent. Very good. I'm excited. I'm today and wrote, and it felt good, man.
Yes.
I'm excited.
Excellent. Excellent. Oh, I'm just seeing in the comments, perhaps I am coming across a little choppy. Are you guys able to hear me okay?
Yeah, I think we've every few minutes it'll get a little bit choppy. But I mean, it's good quality.
It's okay.
It's not bad.
Okay. Yes. Interesting. Well, I hope that does not persist, but we'll hope that our alien or robot or dark web or whatever conspiracy theory overlords we want to attach to it are going to let this this broadcast happen today. So let's kind of dive into it.
It might be.
I saw. Oh, go
It
ahead.
might. I was just saying it might be. Valor said it's me too. So.
Okay. Well, then maybe it's a restream problem. This is our live streaming service that we use here. We'll blame it on them. It's not us, it's them. So yeah, let's dive in. I think Matt, good to see you as well. Feel free to dive into the conversation whenever you want to. But I wanted to kind of get right into talking about character. So last week we kind of ended with the challenge to start thinking about Macronauts, your Macronauts, and specifically the character that you want to essentially portray through this lens, if you will, or through this idea of being a macroversal explorer. And so there are a few components to that as we think about, especially starting to head towards this first season of the audio series, and then beyond that into comics and other media from there. But the fundamentals are the same. And so, a couple of you have already posted some characters and concepts, and we're going to visit those a little bit before the end of this session. But I just wanted to kind of take a step back. Some of you will remember this from early sessions in Storytelling 101, which, by the way, are all still posted in the Macroverse Discord as well. If anyone wants to revisit or visit for the first time, all of those sessions. But just to kind of go back to the very fundamental concept here, that when we're thinking about characters in the context of storytelling, in the context of especially narrative fiction, that you can break all these rules. None of these are hard, fast, chiseled in stone, immovable rules, but it's good to just kind of keep the basic framework in mind around how this mostly usually works, and you can kind of map it onto any of our favorite shows, movies, animations, etc. So fundamentally, the thing I always like to come back to is that character is the thing that drives the story forward. We think about it, character drives plot does not drive character. And I think this is the biggest thing that I think early writers struggle with, is you have an idea for a story, and the story is organized around a series of events that happen, and then the characters that are in that story kind of just get swept along from moment to moment. We get very invested. I dare say the things that become the things that we love in the world of entertainment are those that the characters are the thing that the choices they're making, the actions they're taking, the responses that they're having, those feel very intentional and inevitable, and that they drive the story forward. So, instead of, I'm walking down the street and I, fall down a manhole cover into the sewer, and there just happens to be a crocodile there, and now I'm fighting that crocodile for my life. That would be an example of, kind of the character being swept along by the beats of the story. And a very kind of simple twist on that to make it be more character driven is knowing that, that person, and I woke up this morning, I'm the guy fighting the crocodile. I wake up this morning, there's a photo on my dresser that shows that, my father was eaten by a crocodile. And I've been, I take a moment to acknowledge that. I'm searching for this beast, my entire life. And, I've gotten a message from someone that I've, developed a relationship over time that suggests that this, crocodile may be in the city. And I, choose to go out and try to track them down and, get into the conflict that way. So it's, it requires a little more, you could say, structure or framework to kind of get to the same place. but now I have an understanding, in that very lame example, of, you know, why is this character doing this, and it feels that the character is, you know, again, making some choices or driven by a need to get to that place in the story, as opposed to just, you know, landing in that place in the story, both metaphorically and literally in my example. So kind of thinking more about, you know, again, character is that the character, the wants of the character, the needs of the character, you know, that's the thing that's moving the story forward. And generally, every character has something that they want. It doesn't necessarily mean revenge on father eating crocodiles, but it is something that could be a physical need, an emotional need, you know, or anything else that is driving the actions of that particular character forward. I think usually we relate to emotional needs the most deeply. You know, as humans, I think we most deeply connect to, you know, the need to feel accepted, the need to feel loved, the need to, you know, have your life matter or stand for something. You know, that there's something that is inherent in your own personality and your characters' personalities that, you know, motivate the different choices that they then make and the actions that they take. And if you can start to identify exactly what that is, that need, that want, then it also makes your job a lot easier as you start to understand who that character is in the context of the story that you're telling, so that when an event happens, the magic moment as a writer is when, you know, you put your character in a situation where, you know, they've kind of brought themselves to this point, and then something happens that in the story, some moment occurs, and the reaction that the character has to that, as you're, you know, you're typing this out or writing this out, is one that, you know, sometimes even surprises you, but you've established that character so well that you kind of know, based on the choices that they make, based on the wants that they have, based on the places that they're trying to go, that when this thing occurs, there's a way that that type of person with that type of want, with that type of need, reacts to that situation. And then very often the way to think about kind of the arc of the story, the beginning, middle, and end of the story, is also thinking through the lens of this character. You know, how are they going to change by the end of the story? And so if you start off needing revenge on your father eating crocodile, I'll just drive this into the ground by the end of this conversation. If you start out feeling the need for revenge, you might end up at the end of that realizing that that need for revenge was actually what you thought would fill this gaping hole of acceptance, the desire for acceptance, the desire for love, the desire for guidance, you know, that was missing because that father was eaten by the crocodile. And so being able to think about how does the want and the need then relate to the resolution that happens at the end of the story? How does that bring the character to a new place that they could never have gotten to had they not gone on this journey? You know, is another place to kind of think about how to craft the structure for that story. And then the final note around character in particular, and this will get really interesting in the context of these Macronaut stories, is that conflict in your story, in most stories, in the best stories, I dare say, is conflict that is driven by two different characters with opposing wants and needs. So, you know, if you've got one character who's determined to have revenge for the father eating crocodile, and you've got another character who is driven by the need to save the last of this rare crocodile species from extinction, they can both be great people at the end of the day, but there's going to automatically be conflict that gets created between them in the course of the story. And so, you know, you can think about protagonists and antagonists, even very broadly painted heroes and villains, as characters with wants and needs that are opposed to each other. And so when those things collide, that creates conflict, that creates more fuel that, drives the story forward. To go to, very, very hopefully well-known example here, if we look at Infinity Game or any of the Avengers kind of Thanos saga, what makes that so good, in my opinion, is that we actually really understand why Thanos is doing what he's doing. We can wrap our head around, from his point of view, why we would eliminate half of the universe's population. And some of us, including myself, might even have a moment of going like, would we be better off if we did that at the end of the day? Is he right in this argument that, the resources are too scarce to support the current population? I mean, we're facing some of that over the next decades in our own planet. So when you have, one character that feels very strongly, this is the way to save the universe is to kill half of the universe. Well, you can sort of understand that, but then it's also not too hard to root for the good guys, quote unquote, who are saying, we're going to find a different way without having to murder half of the universe. But it creates great conflict. It drives the story forward, and it ultimately gives us, some understanding of both of those points of view. So I'm going to pause there for a second and open it up.
I was going to say, man.
Oh,
you just can't see me. So
you are pretty scratchy at the moment for me.
I can maybe switch if I have to. If you have conflict between, is like a third in, like a love triangle, I really love. Maybe a hate triangle. I don't know.
This is the joys of being live, but Tiny, I can barely make it out. So something about a love triangle, but you might have to switch inputs or come back in. Could be a headphone or a microphone issue as well. Matt, I don't know if you're at a place where you can talk for a second, but how are you, sir? If so. And if not,
I'm doing all right. Is it any better here? Wednesday?
Hello. Oh, Matt, go ahead. Tiny, hold on a second.
Oh, I was just saying, not too bad for a busy Wednesday. How are you?
I'm doing indeed. Any thoughts on this topic, or do we want to see if Tiny is audible at the moment?
Yeah, I think so I love the idea of character conflict and really the arc of the story I think is contingent on the character changing one way or another, whether intentional or otherwise. I guess the one question that I have for you, Evan, is that conflict that you talked about between characters. Can that conflict also be an internal conflict where you've got this diametrically opposed, not dual personality, but that character is wrestling with themselves to try and get to a better place, as opposed to that outward physical conflict with another character?
Yeah, I mean, I think yes is the answer to that. I think it depends on, it very much depends on the story that you're telling. I think I'm trying to think of an example where it is, more of an internal conflict. I don't know if you have something you're thinking of. Weirdly, the one that immediately comes to mind is, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name of. I think it's Castaway, where Tom Hanks is on the island by himself with the beach ball. But so it's like if you're literally in a one person story, then the only conflict that there is either with yourself or with external, like I guess man versus nature, kind of a setup. So I think there are certainly internal conflicts. I think the question becomes, is that enough to motivate kind of the full arc of the storyline. And it could be, but it's, I would say that's a little more, quote unquote, I hate this term, but a little more execution dependent as to whether or not we feel like it actually feels satisfying or if it feels more schizophrenic.
Got it. That makes
sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you have in mind? Like that, I'm now very curious kind of what's at the source of that or at the heart of that question.
No, it's just, one thing that I can tell you, it's probably motivated more by my experience throughout COVID. With the pandemic and not being able to leave the house, literally it was just me here wrestling with my own mental demons. And so that's really where the crux of the question came from, as opposed to having a story in mind or having an example in the real world that's been built out from a movie or TV series. But it's just interesting understanding my own journey during COVID.
Yeah, no, I think we all have. I mean, it's one of the fascinating things about what this past handful of years has been is I think we've all got this, some version of that experience. And, I always think that when you are constructing story and characters, like the more you can bring your own personal experience into it, the better. So even if it's not literal, it makes the story that you're telling, the character that you're focused on, more specific. And the more specific it is, the more the more specific it is to you and your experience, the more of it's a kind of singular voice it's going to have. So I think that's all really valuable. I think that I would just say that it kind of depends on what story you're going to tell. So if you're telling the story of a person in isolation, then probably the majority of the conflict is going to be internal. But it could also turn into so much of the need for anything to break the monotony of that maybe it becomes a you versus the cockroaches that are managing to get into the house storyline. And then I think it's more the question of by the end of that story, what. And not that this necessarily maps to reality, but it's like, what has that character that's gone through that internal journey, internal conflict, where have they come out on the other side? And, most likely they've come out on the other side in some place that's, different than where they started.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Realizing something different than where they've started, at least. Tiny, are you back now?
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me?
I can hear. We got a little feedback, but let's give it a shot.
Yeah, I'm still getting a little choppiness, but between the both of you guys. But I was just hoping that this would work. But no, I actually love the fact that he brought up the internal conflict because, as we know, that's like one of the things I absolutely love writing. I did the same with GSA. And that's, I feel like, kind of like where I'm headed now, but also, and this is, I guess, becoming a trend for me as I almost write in like pairs, like instead of having a character, I always have two, as in this one I just submitted. I started with, and I almost want to say like myself, like I put myself into this person, Jeremiah, shoes. But I bring along someone else, and so now you say, conflict between two people or two things or whatever, and I'm like, okay, conflict between those two people, but then they're also jumping through a portal, and now my question is like, and this is where I said like love triangle. Is it too much to like bring in a third external conflict? Is that overkill? I mean,
no, I mean, I don't think it's overkill. Just I think the thing is to just have clear, I would say, especially from an audience perspective, and this becomes even more important as we're talking about audio versus visual, that, just having a clear way to tell the story where it's very understandable to the audience, kind of what the motivation for each character is. And then as those motivations collide, like that's the thing that is going to create tension or create conflict. And, we talk about conflict. I think it's easy to think of that as, kind of very dramatic conflict, like superhero conflict, or man or woman versus zombie conflict, as the case may be. Or, I think it's easy to think conflict as violence or conflict as drama, but it doesn't necessarily even have to be that. It could be conflict as sadness, or conflict as not knowing what to do, like, not having your mind, made up, or, having two different paths and being unclear about which one to go down. So, it circles back around to what Matt was saying a little bit, is thinking about, let's take a very classic, Marvel character, which I think works so well in the very beginning, incarnation for Spider-Man, which has now lasted the test of, 80 plus years. The internal conflict for Spider-Man is there constantly. It's, am I Spider-Man or am I Peter Parker? The world loves me as Spider-Man. My life sucks as Peter Parker. And, how do I serve both of these identities? So there's a lot of internal conflict, for Spider-Man as Spider-Man. There's a lot of conflict internally for him as Peter Parker, getting picked on and bullied at school, and not feeling like he can have the girlfriend that he wants. And, he's struggling to pay the bills, and then he gets to go off and have these adventures as Spider-Man. So, he can't tell his aunt who he is, protecting his secret identity. Like, there's all of that stuff, which you could kind of consider internal conflict, or, problems that this character has. But if all we were seeing was the struggle of Peter Parker deciding whether he wanted to be, Peter Parker or Spider-Man, and there was no Dr. Octopus, or, no Green Goblin, or, any of the Rogues Gallery, I don't know if we would have lasted 80 years. So I think, you can kind of think about both of those things. It's not that you're picking, one or the other, but it's understanding this character, and all of us as humans, all the characters we identify with, we all have problems and challenges. And, some of that may show up in the form of what we're kind of talking about as internal conflict here. But generally, whether it's fighting a supervillain, or, not remembering where you parked at the Waffle House, there's some external motivation or, factor that comes into play that then creates more problems for that character. And more problems for that character is the other way to kind of think about conflict. That, if your character is motivated to do something, they're making choices that's driving them, into the next thing that happens. And then generally the next thing that happens creates another problem they have to kind of figure out how to overcome. And then that creates this kind of, almost think of it as a loop, where it's like the problem, they do something that creates a problem that makes them do something, which creates another problem. So, you're generally kind of, what they would say, kind of turning up the heat, over and over and over again, until they finally get to the point where, often only because they learned or changed or did something different, are they now able to overcome those problems. Does that make sense? Is that helpful to that question? Tiny?
Yeah, definitely. So I don't have anything in mind. I'm just like, again, like, I kind of now see like these two friends going through a portal, and I guess having two different ideas of what they're doing once they get there. And that would be a great story, but I always feel like there should be like the surprise.
Nothing wrong with a good twist.
So that's why I was like, is it too much to introduce a third? Like, because I feel like, I don't know, got to mix it up a little bit.
It's not too much if it works. I think one of the interesting challenges, I've been thinking about this with Macronauts specifically. I think one of the interesting challenges here, and it's, again, I think something that's an opportunity, because I can't point to something else that quite does this. So we're all pioneers here. But I think one of the interesting opportunities is we're dealing with one layer of story, which is Macronaut, goes on adventure, probably, maybe, most likely, usually comes home from adventure having, learned something, changed, having that kind of character arc. So you got your quote unquote main character going on this journey, but then you've also got whatever's on the other side of that portal, which could be, everything from, just, fighting off a horde of zombies to falling in love with a character in a different world. And then, what does that, require? How do you solve for that if you're in that predicament? So each of the different places that they can go could introduce, a whole variety of other factors, from other, quote unquote lead characters or secondary characters, to complications in their lives for what they want to accomplish, to, actual life-threatening injury and death, to being lost in a world that's not theirs forever, and all those things combined, and more. So, I think we have this interesting kind of double layered story structure here to kind of figure out together, where it's like the arc of the main character of the Macronaut, and then also the arc of the story and adventure that they're having in this other world, and potentially the way that those two things interplay and work together. So I think the thing we're going to have to look out for is that the adventures in these different worlds don't just feel like a sequence of events. So they don't just feel like, these are just plot points to move the Macronaut from point A to point B, but rather has something to say about the journey that character is on, and tells some piece of a story that makes sense in that world at the same time. So I'm pretty interested in, how we ultimately kind of bring those things together, but I'm also excited because it's going to be really cool.
I agree. And to answer a couple, I don't know if it was you that brought it up, or just to I guess retouch on kind of you summarizing where we started. I think so far from what I've heard, everything has been phenomenal, and I think it's I would love to see all of it being used, but I loved the last time, I think it was the last time that Rama was here, and we were talking about just, I guess, talking about it, not, I guess, the backstory, and almost not having one, where I guess the backstory would be a solid story depending on, I guess, what story you're in, where you're from, what world you're in, they all know of it and the technology and what it is and that it exists, but maybe almost like a religion, it has a different backstory and a different creation, and they all have different beliefs of how it started, and it's not necessarily a known, or maybe someday it could be known and it's a secret. I don't know, but I really love the idea that depending on what world you're in, the technology could have a different existence, and the people could know about it and all believe something totally different. And I love, I guess, the whole thing I love about this project and the whole idea of it is that infinity and just how much you can do with it, but also, not letting it go too far at the same time. I mean, really, I guess it takes you back, to Jeet Kune Do, Bruce Lee, having no way is way and no limitations as limitations. It's just you can do anything. And that to me is astounding. And that's what is mind bending to me.
I love it. You can do anything. Let's and all of us should be out to bend some minds, I think, but it's good. Yeah, I mean, I think, the Macroverse Discord. But looking at what you wrote as this kind of initial draft of this submission, So, I mean, why don't you kind of walk us through that real quick? And I think we can do a little workshop on it while we're here. Do you want to kind of repitch it, or I can read it and perform it, and we can talk about it that way?
Well, I mean, God, I mean, I would almost pay money to see that, because I still say like the audio version of the GSA is epic. I mean, it's just phenomenal. Like, so, I mean, and yeah, I mean, that would be awesome. But I don't, either way.
All right. Challenge accepted. So, my daughter, side note, my daughter is 9, and for the last couple of years has refused to let me do voices while I read to her at night. Something snapped over the past couple of months, and so she's been now not only allowing voices but directing voices in these books. She's giving me line reads from time to time. So now I'm in that frame of mind, and I'm gonna do my best to perform this for you. So this is Tiny Universe's current submission for character and story pitch for Macronaut, titled with a thinking face, The Other Side. Character, Jeremiah Stanton. His friend, Tom Westbury. As of now, this is not focused on a specific world. Earth in the not so distant past. I've honestly just freestyled so far, and I'm curious where this will go. So this is where it starts. That's my Tiny Universe commentary, I think, coming into it. The phone alarm goes off, blasting loud ska music. Give us some ska music, Tiny. Just give us a little ska beat here.
I don't know one. You put me on the spot. This all started with like Sublime and Offspring. So just imagine Offspring. I guess that's where this came from.
All right, this is gonna be the crazy fun part. But now you got to remind everyone listening what's your favorite Offspring song. Hum a couple notes. Hum a couple bars.
Man, you put me. I can't. You put me on the spot. Now I'm like, I don't even know an Offspring song.
Oh my goodness! All right, kids, look up Offspring on Spotify or Apple Music. All right, phone alarm goes off, blasting loud ska music. Jeremiah jumps up out of bed, already dressed. He steps into his Jordans, tightens the laces, looks in the mirror. This is it. Today's the day. Are you ready? Don't be a beep pussy. It's your time to shine. It's been a tough year. I lost my little brother in a drunk driving accident. My parents fell apart. They basically don't talk. My dad can't work after the accident, so we're pretty much lost everything. For the last 4 months, me and my best friend Tom have been grinding hard to find every single piece we needed. I managed to get a copy of the almanac from some guy on the internet. It cost me basically everything I had saved, but I think it will be worth it. He brushes his teeth, throws on a hoodie, grabs a piece of toast from the kitchen. Not much else to choose from. Bye, guys. Love you. Heads outside and throws on his massive headphones. Well, I don't have any massive headphones at the moment. Music all the way up, and throws his skateboard to the ground. This would usually be the point where I go to school, but not today. Maybe not ever again, depending on how everything goes. Today I'm heading to meet Tom, and we've done what the almanac says we've done, and today we're jumping. Oh yeah. This would usually be the point where I go to school. Oh, no, that's part I just read. Tom's a couple years older and dropped out of school. He has his own apartment, and he's had it pretty rough too. I mean, I think we have different ideas of what jumping will do for us, but I think in the end, we really just want to see what is out there for us. I mean, have you ever felt like you were meant to do something so big, but because of one reason or another, it just happened for the other guy? Yeah, I think most people have that feeling. When I get to Tom's, he's up and wide-eyed, energy drink in hand. The music's on louder than what was in my headphones. My Evans commentary, I'm going deaf. And I felt like, his neighbors hate us. What's up, bro? Chilling. What's good, my friend? Bro, I'm so fucking stoked. Did you get the power supply? Did I get the power supply? Are you fucking kidding me? Of course I got the power supply. Did you bring the weed? I thought you were. Laughing, I pulled out some weed, and we all know where this goes. A few bong hits later, it's time to plug some shit in and see if we have made history. Up until now, we don't know of any normal people who have gotten to jump. But that doesn't mean this hasn't worked before. It just means we don't know. If there's one thing I love, it's the unknown. Bum, bum, bum. How are you?
That was pretty excellent. It was pretty excellent. I think the dialogue went perfectly. That's like exactly what I heard in my head. It's like I feel like maybe like a combination of Back to the Future meets Bill and Ted's, and still quantum leap.
I love that as a concept. Look, here's yeah. No, I love it. I love it. I mean, I think that this actually is a very good example of a lot of what we're talking about. So, I mean, there are places to probably push, but I think you get a very clear sense very quickly of like what's the dynamic between these friendship of what they're kind of how they are together, how do they behave together, and so when I think about it's actually fun reading that because I think it also gives a sense of especially thinking about audio, like that's kind of a version of what you might hear if that were the story. And so going from that to now here are these two stoners that have managed to cobble together a jump core in their apartment, and they're gonna jump through it not knowing what's on the other side. I'm kind of in love with that idea as one of the stories. And you have to decide what is on the other side, because if they're going into the unknown, are they ending up in a forest of giant mushrooms, or are they fighting off aliens and sci-fi samurai?
Well, and the really fun thing about it is I'm excited to find out too. And like this is crazy because I literally just said this the other day. Like I was just listening to Offspring, and all of a sudden, like it just hit me. I was like, "Oh God, jump core!" And I really don't I don't know how it happened, but like once I started, like same thing. I didn't even I guess like the idea I had in my head was just this stoner kid that's like a skater kid, and two, I think. You posted the aerosol stuff, the sneak peeks, that whole anime style. Like I'm just like obsessed with it right now, and I can see like a lot of graffiti and stuff, and just different. Like that's like what I'm into at the moment. So like it all just kind of like I said, I just sat down for like an hour, and that's just what spilled out, and I really enjoyed it, and I really put myself into his shoes. And that's why I said this is like one of the first times really I was actually like really happy after I sat down and wrote and was like, well, I actually like enjoyed that. That was pretty good. But so I'm
good. Sorry.
But no, I mean like I think like I didn't really know where I was going with it, but like what you just said with like conflict between two people, and like I feel like I've done a pretty good job just in that little short explaining like kind of like how I see them almost like super close as brothers. Neither one really knows what they're doing, trying to get by, and really wanting to do this thing together because they're not happy where they're at in this world. And I already kind of set it up without even knowing that you're going to say this tonight. Like, I don't know if we'll have the same idea of what we're doing with the jump. But I feel like when they get to the other side, I don't even know what's over there yet, that they're going to want two different things on the other side. And it could get really, again, like I just have I have like 10 million ideas. I don't know which one I want to go with. Or maybe go with them all. I don't know. Choose your own adventure.
Choose your own adventure, indeed. I mean, what you just said is one version of where this could go, and it's like it's I would say it's probably the slightly obvious version of where it could go. But I think going from like, hey, we're obviously really close, we're on the same page, we're in this together, to now we go through this, portal into this adventure, and kind of the low point traditionally kind of at the end of Act 2 is actually, now that we've gone into this together, we realize we don't want the same things. We don't want to end up in the same place. Maybe we hate each other because of what's brought us to this point, or can't stand to be around each other, and we're going our separate ways. And then by the end of the story, they come back together, and it's only because they come back together that they're able to return home, or have the survive this experience. So that would be kind of the obvious, somewhat predictable version of it, but that's also a perfectly good template to kind of think about or work from, wherever they end up.
Or there's a third conflict surprise that has a massive twist.
There could be. I mean, could be that, it's and it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be as dramatic as them, hating each other and going their separate ways either. But I think it's, generally, I mean, this is something we've seen a bunch of times, but it's like, different versions of, everything's good until something new comes into the mix. So we're healthy, we're happy, we're best friends, and then something new comes into the mix, be it a alternate dimension or love interest that only one of us can have. So I think that becomes a kind of very classic kind of disruption of an existing relationship, and then how do those characters resolve that by the end, and generally in a way where only through their kind of finding their way back to each other are they even able to resolve that by the end. So again, sort of a little tropey, but also not a bad place to start. But I love it. I think there's definitely something really fun there, and I like the idea of the stoner buds, pun not intended, putting their black market piecemeal Home Depot jump core together in the middle of this dude's apartment. I think that's a lot of fun. Awesome. Very cool. Chris and thank you, Tiny, for posting that. Chris in the chat asked if characters have to be if they have to go through portals. I'm really curious what you're thinking, Chris, because the whole concept of this is about going through portals, but now I'm desperate to know how it would work when you have a character that just doesn't.
Sounds like my son.
I'm
not going through that.
It's like the reluctant explorer. So it's like you built this thing, you're kind of maybe peeking into it and going like, oh man, samurais fighting in sci-fi alien world, nope. Zombie apocalypse, definitely nope.
I feel like we talked about the bad parent that throws their kid through the portal. Like that might be his story. He liked it. He's rolling with it.
The only way to know for sure is to come onto the Macroverse Discord at discord.gg/Macroverse and see when he posts it. I think that if you are all in favor of it, I'm going to choose one of these to perform each session, because I had a lot of fun with that, and hopefully people watching will as well. So there is another one posted from Lady Valor, and I love the concept here as well, but you're going to have to visit the Discord to hear that one at the moment, or to see that one at the moment. So I think that covers the majority of what I wanted to cover tonight. There are a couple of other things I want to talk about quickly before we wrap up for this session. By all means, this channel is now open, so the floodgates are open for story ideas, character ideas, kind of thinking about how this first season of audio stories is going to come together. This is going to start moving pretty quickly. So if you're in the if you're someone that wants to be included in season 1 of this adventure, I would not wait too long to get those stories in. We're probably looking at somewhere between 8 to 10 total for season 1. Could be as few as 6, won't be more than 10, but somewhere in that range. So if you want to be in this first season, again, I would just get them in so we can start moving through that and getting stuff put together. And then switching gears from Macronauts overall sessions going forward, to just give a little overall Macronauts, take a minute at the end. A lot of things have been happening that we haven't as a little bonus for people that tune into these sessions or come to them later. I just want to give a little update to the community and to you as participants in this today, which I'm actually very excited about. Is we got a takedown notice on one of our Darkland episodes from Webtoon. So we can now officially say that Darkland is too hot for Webtoons. They did not like the fact that there were boobs in one of those episodes. So if you are not afraid of boobs and kind of Game of Thrones level content in a very fun, cool story, then see the premium experience without the too hot for Webtoons takedown version on the Macroverse app. So encourage people to check that out there. We're going to do something fun in response to that censored episode. And I mean, if they took that one down, I can only say I can't guarantee that the rest of it's going to make it up onto Webtoon, because I know what's coming. So we shall see. It's going to be fun to play with what we can get away with over the rest of the chapters on Webtoon. But of course, the full season will continue to fun with it. Too hot for Webtoons officially stamped. The Moonbirds comic proposal went in this past week. So some of we've been working on this for a while, and there's a initiative to do a whole Moonbirds comic series that will involve the Moonbirds ecosystem with the Macroverse ecosystem and result in comics initially, and then kind of be, as we're pitching it, the start of the kind of official entertainment franchise for Moonbirds and Oddities and Mythics. We are approaching this a little bit differently than what some other projects might do, where we do want to include everyone that's in the Moonbirds ecosystem, but also make it very accessible to all of you and other creators. And so, as with everything we do, we're trying to prioritize participation over necessarily owning particular assets. But of course, there's a role for both. But that proposal is in, and we're doing a Twitter space tomorrow morning with a couple of the other proposals that have gone into the DAO at 8 a.m. Pacific. So if anyone wants to tune into that, we'll tweet about it and we'll post about it. But that is going to be 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. You might have seen on Twitter today as well that we're doing a partnership with another project called Entertainment. And Entertainment is initially started as sort of a Web3 version of Netflix, but they're trying out some different things. And what we're partnering with them on is doing a bunch of short stories for all kinds of characters around Web3. So this is a chance, no matter what PFP you have, to bring it to this partnership between us and Entertainment. We're going to run these as 90-minute Twitter space brainstorms, where essentially someone brings their character, that character becomes the star of a 2-page comic. And in the course of 90 minutes, we'll nail down what's the story for that character. And then we'll bring that to our collection of artists and writers and creators, and turn these kind of 2-page episodes around pretty quickly. So every couple of weeks, you'll see kind of the result of that process for an initial run of about 10 episodes. So we're going to have a lot of fun with that. If you're interested in having any of your PFPs be the star of those episodes, there's a Google form to fill out to submit for that, and goes into some more details and questions around kind of how people want to play with this. But that's on the Macroverse Twitter today as well. So Macroverse HQ on Twitter. On the platform side, we are in the last stage of testing and bug fixing at the moment. Some of you may know that a big part of our development team is in Turkey. So thank goodness everybody is okay and alive, but they have had a horrific time over the past few weeks, which has definitely delayed things a little bit on the tech side of things. But we're back in action, final bug testing, smart contracts are deployed. We're kind of doing the final stages of everything that has to be done there to be able to do our official Epics release. We've got a couple of other new partnerships that have been working on behind the scenes, which will be announced shortly as well. I want to encourage everyone that's here and listening to follow in the Discord as well. We have 2 channels that are set up to tweet out all the different, or to post all the things that come through either the Macroverse social channels or all of our creator social channels. And some people are annoyed by that, but it's very easy to mute those channels if you don't want to see those tweets. I look at it like this is one place for you guys to see everything that's going on across the ecosystem, as opposed to having to go, track down or follow a bunch of different feeds if you don't necessarily want to, or if you're too busy. This is one, kind of centralized location to see everything we're doing, everything all the creators that we're working with are doing. One of the things you'll see pop up there on a multiple times a week is Jason Brubaker doing live streams with a bunch of his friends and other collaborators making his new comic series, which is kind of a soft announcement for our next project with Jason. So if you're interested in actually seeing literally a master of the craft of making comics and graphic novels, kind of actually doing that work, I think he's streaming at least 3 times a week, and those notifications come up in the Maker socials channel on Discord. And he's generally streaming for about 3 hours at a time, so very easy to pop into, but definitely can't recommend that enough if you like kind of seeing that process. And then 2 last things. We're going to have something fun and special coming up on Monday the 13th, so keep an eye out for that. I will definitely make an announcement about it in the Discord and across other social channels. It's going to be a fun thing that opens the door for some interesting iteration, I will say. But it's the start of something that I think is going to be pretty cool over the next coming months, and actually a massive value add to everything that we've been building. So super excited about that. Watch for that on Monday. And finally, if you have enjoyed any part of this conversation, please follow, subscribe, do all the things, tell your friends about it, invite more people to join the conversation. We really believe we are rebuilding the infrastructure for how entertainment franchises are made and how people can participate in the creation of those franchises. And initially it looks a lot like this. So helping to spread the word and support the projects and the people and the engagement opportunities, the participation opportunities, even something as simple as a like or a comment or a share, it really does make a difference. So do all of those things as well. And with that, I will just say, for those of you that joined live, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you and you being a part of what we're building here. It really does mean the world to me. So I will see you around the interwebs and on the Discord. And one more time, discord.gg/Macroverse. Come join the party. Come be a Macronaut. There is so much more to come. Thank you all so much. That was a lot of me talking, but I am now ending the stream. Good night.